While the visual novel community is still relatively niche, we still have an alright amount of visual novel YouTube content as is. As far as video reviews go, we're pretty well covered with people like August Hale, Noisy Pixel, Cup Like Foot, and Bruce Gone Loose. There's some pretty big Let's Players, and also many people who might not even get 30 views a video. I've even seen some nice tutorials and other videos of that nature. And if you want visual novel news, well, you know where to go. However, I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in terms of potential visual novel related YouTube content. In this video, I'm going to be going over 10 video ideas I'd like to see more of, whether it's from me or someone else. At number 1, I have podcasts. I was a co-host on The Broadcast Club, and I also know of the Kiniku podcast. However, both have stopped. Also, The Broadcast Club had issues with upload consistency, and the Kiniku podcast had the issue of having way too many people talking, which made it just feel like a random recorded friend voice chat group. I'd like to see a structured visual novel related podcast with 2 to 4 people where they talk about different topics or visual novels in an interesting way consistently. At number 2, I have interviews. On Twitter and social media, we have plenty of people in the visual novel translation scene who openly voice their thoughts on random things, visual novels or not. Why not have a nice structured interview to get more thoughts on them so it's easier for people to search for and not have to scroll through Twitter every day? Alternatively, interviewing a visual novel developer, Western or Japanese, would be nice, though I'm sure a Japanese dev would be super hard to do. Number 3, visual novel development tips. Indie visual novel creation has been slowly getting bigger. Just look at places like Kickstarter, Steam, and Itch. While we do have Rempi tutorials, there's likely a lot more advice to making visual novels that upcoming developers would like to hear. Maybe things like writing tips, finding artists, advertising, getting money, etc. Number 4, story and or character analysis. The closest we get to story or character analysis on YouTube is through reviews. But unless someone explicitly gets into spoilers, there's a limit on how much you can do in a non-spoilery review. I think it'd be cool to have someone analyze a story's themes, focus on particular foreshadowing, comparisons to other stories, and stuff of that nature. Maybe even applying personality tests like the Myers-Briggs or Enneagram. Number 5, memes or skits. I think in general, the visual novel community's meme game is a bit underdeveloped. On the visual novel subreddit and on Twitter, I'll occasionally get a chuckle out of some text memes, but many of them are just the typical modern cringe style. I think one thing people underestimate as far as getting more people to try something new is to have a meme get really popular. If someone somehow made consistent meme videos that got traction and got people to read them, that could be helpful and nice. Number 6, visual novel to anime adaptation comparisons. The only person I know who's done this well was August Hale, and they were some nice videos. However, I'm aware a lot of visual novel fans on the internet tend to just go, anime adaptations are never good, they bad, just read the visual novel. But some people want to know why, you know? I think even a video highlighting general differences would be nice, but of course seeing particular characterization differences or small details would be cool too. Number 7, just anything from official localization companies. I recently went through some of the localization companies' YouTube channels. They tend to just have opening videos and trailers at best. I would personally like it more if localization companies did more of their advertising through YouTube. For example, having their translation updates that they tend to keep to Twitter. The closest thing we have to a localization company YouTube is the Gogo Nippon VTuber channel, especially where the Gogo Nippon sister duo have a streamed handful of manga gamer translated visual novels. Number 8, Japanese language related content. There are a few videos I've seen that give advice on how to read or buy visual novels in Japanese. However, if there's one thing I've noticed is that many JOPs, or basically visual novel readers who only read in Japanese, tend to have an elitist attitude. But I noticed they just tend to stay in their circles, and outside a few guides, many of them are rarely helpful at actually motivating people to learn Japanese. To me, these JOPs could easily do stuff like making Japanese-only visual novel recommendations, or based on the N level, you know, like N1 and 2 and 3, top 10 favorite untranslated visual novel lists, or hell, just reviews on untranslated visual novels. Maybe give recommendations on untranslated visual novels that focus on certain vocabulary if you want to focus on a certain subject. I think YouTube can be pretty good for this type of content. Number 9, visual novel translation theory. On Twitter, we have plenty of visual novel translators who blog about translations they're working on. Some visual novel fans tend to have complaints about how certain localizations are done. I think it would be nice if translators just talked about why they translated certain things the way they do. This could probably work better as a general translation theory video, but considering how heated discussions get about Japanese to English translations of visual novels, I think using visual novel lines and scenes as examples would be nice. Number 10, tier lists or general favorites lists. If there's one thing I noticed, The few tier list videos we have on visual novels have a pretty good amount of views, mine included. Clearly people like seeing other people's tastes, potentially getting recommendations, and of course calling people out for having trash tastes. In my opinion, if you want your visual novel channel to at least have a little clout or an easy way to get views, definitely do a decently well made visual novel tier list video or something like that. But more unique top 10 lists or something of that nature, like what I've been trying, could be cool too. And there you have it, 10 types of visual novel YouTube content I'd like to see. Do you have any thoughts on the ones I mentioned? Are there any particular type of visual novel YouTube content you guys like to see? Feel free to leave a comment below with your opinion.